want a war? You're gonna get one.
Happy New Year everyone and welcome back to Reliving the War. It's February 12, 2001 and we've got Raw in East Rutherford, New Jersey while Nitro's live from Bollocks, Mississippi. We're days away from WCW SuperBrawl Revenge, the final SuperBrawl pay-per-view WCW will ever produce. And you know, I've always liked SuperBrawl shows for some reason. They weren't all home runs by any stretch of the imagination, but in the early days it felt like there were more good SuperBrawl events than bad ones. We'll see if the usual trend of bad WCW pay-per-views continue later in the week, but right now on Nitro we're starting off again with no intro video and no show open. Ric Steiner and Dustin Rhodes are already beating each other up in the ring while Raw presents a 20-minute promo initiated by Triple H. My God. So it appears Dustin Rhodes versus Ric Steiner is a sanctioned match, even though last week Ric Flair told Dustin he wouldn't be seen on WCW TV ever again. Flair does come out seconds after Nitro begins and he wonders what Rhodes doesn't understand. Dustin is not employed by WCW, he's not supposed to be here. Tell me then, why is there a fucking referee in the ring? So the CEO sends security down while Steiner lays in a cheap shot. Dustin falls out of the ring. Flair tells him to get his bags, get on a plane and get out of here because he's not permitted to be on WCW television. So Dustin gets brought back up the ramp while Flair gets in the ring alongside Rick Steiner, Mike Sanders and Animal. And it's here where the team with no name finally gets a name. Rick reveals his dream team's officially known as the Magnificent Seven, so that must be Rick himself, Animal, Mike Sanders, Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner, Jeff Jarrett, Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger. Medeja? Yeah. Like clockwork, Ernest Miller comes out and he says since he's the commissioner, he's reinstated Dustin Rhodes. Commissioners seem to have a lot of power in WCW, don't they? Miller says he's going to reinstate something else right now, his foot in Rick's ass. But Rick tells Miller to hold up because he's actually going to compete in a match right now. A match for the WCW Commissionership against Lance Storm. So wait a minute, wasn't this match booked for SuperBrawl this week? Why are they putting it on now? Swear to God man, you'd think I was making this stuff up. There's no need to point out what's wrong with this company because it's plain as day every single week. Mike Sanders is also going to serve as the special referee for this match. Miller has 3 minutes to win. Do keep in mind that Dustin's now officially back in WCW after Cat reinstated him, but in doing so, it looks like the Cat could be losing his job a little early. Over on Raw, Triple H gets his usual heat. He rips into the crowd. Stephanie agrees with everything her husband says. We learn here that Rock's facing Rikishi in tonight's main event, with Rikishi representing Austin and Rock representing Triple H. The match stipulation for No Way Out's up for grabs, so if Rikishi wins, Austin picks the match. If Rock wins, Triple H picks the match. And Hunter just can't understand why Vince McMahon chose Rock to represent him. Tonight, Rock doesn't represent the people, he represents the game. And Hunter says the stipulations he has in mind for No Way Out are, quote, mind-boggling. Austin won't be able to comprehend what kind of trouble he's in at No Way Out as long as Rock wins the Raw main event. So what are we talking about here? What kind of match could be described as mind-boggling? A fucking Iron Man, banana on a pole, doomsday, triple threat, lumberjack, ladder, space, cadet, rumble in the jungle? The Rock comes out and he says he couldn't care less about Hunter's stipulations. The Rock's going to No Way Out to face Kurt Angle for the WWF title, and Rock guarantees he will become WWF champion. That means Rock's going to defend the gold at WrestleMania, but right now Rock has a little stipulation of his own. That stipulation being he's going to walk down the ramp right now and kick Triple H's ass. Before Rock can lay the smackdown, Rikishi shows up. Can't believe we're going to see Rock versus Rikishi once again on WWF TV. But Rikishi says Rock shouldn't be starting fights with anyone else but Rikishi tonight on Raw. The big man makes a little joke when he says he won't steer Austin wrong when he defeats Rock tonight on Raw and earns the Rattlesnake the right to choose a match stipulation. So here comes the bionic redneck, and because he's not allowed to physically attack Triple H, he instead gives him the middle finger. Message sent loud and clear. Austin calls Rikishi one funny diaper-wearing son of a bitch, but he's also representing Stone Cold tonight. Austin's going to sit at ringside and he wants Rikishi to do what he has to do to get the job done. But after the match, Big Keesh is still going to take a Stone Cold Stunner and there's nothing he can do about it. Triple H says he too will be at ringside. He tells Rock he better know his role and he better win later, so Rock punches the game in the mouth. He totally deserved it. Rikishi goes after Rock, Austin intervenes, Triple H then gets in Stone Cold's face, and because these two can't hurt each other, Rikishi gets a free shot at the Texas Rattlesnake. The stakes are high in tonight's main event. Some would say it's maybe a little convoluted and maybe a tad unnecessary, but I think it's pretty interesting. We'll see what happens later on. Ernest Miller takes on Lance Storm next on Nitro. On Raw, we've got Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Jericho for the IC title. Miller attacks referee Sanders just as Lance gets in the ring. Probably not the best idea. When Lance gets sent to the canvas, Sanders gets attacked once again, and so you can't really blame Mike for retaliating. This isn't going to end well for Ernest Miller. He does manage to pull off a double DDT, but this also means he just wiped out the match official. He has to grab Mike's hand and slap it on the mat when covering his opponent, but Lance kicks out and the match continues on. Sanders holds Cat in place for a leg lariat. Lance accidentally hits Mr. Above Average. Again, there's no one there to count Lance's shoulders to the mat when Cat makes another cover, and when Miller tries to wake Sanders up, Lance delivers a super kick and Cat gets put in the Canadian Maple Leaf. Sanders calls for the bell even though Miller didn't submit, so Lance wins and Lance Storm is the new commissioner of WCW. We'll come back to this in just a moment, but over on Raw, Eddie Guerrero's already getting his shot at the IC title after just coming back last week. Latino Heat's looking a lot bigger too as he and Jericho get to work, and both guys are eager to beat the hell out of each other at the opening bell. Eddie takes a drop toe hold, an arm drag and a back suplex before getting lit up with a few chops. He replies with a back elbow and Jericho gets floored again with a European uppercut. More uppercuts follow as the challenger's now looking pretty good, and Y2J gets folded up with a back suplex. After a brainbuster, Eddie looks to end it with a frog splash, but Jericho wakes up and Guerrero takes a superplex. This gets followed up with Jericho's running forearm, and it's now the champ looking good after a facebuster. The Lion Salt's well scouted by Eddie though as he gets his knees up, and Eddie shows some great agility in the corner, though he gets caught out for the walls of Jericho. While the move's applied, another competitor makes his Raw return when X-Pac runs down to the ring. X-Pac breaks the hold before assaulting the IC champion, and the beatdown ends with an X Factor from the returning Sean Waltman. Remember, it was in the Jericho vs X-Pac cage match at No Mercy where Pac got injured, so the kid's getting a little revenge tonight on Raw. We've got some backstage shenanigans next on Raw, while over on Nitro, Ric Flair runs into some problems with big sexy Kevin Nash. Vince McMahon arrives to the arena. He's brought Trish Stratus with him, and also he brought William Regal. God knows what happened in that limousine, and I don't want to know either. On Sunday Night Heat, Kurt Angle called Essa Rios a tequila swilling thief before beating him in the ring, and Michael Cole tells Angle that Essa wants a rematch tonight on Raw. Kurt says, and I quote, "Cripes on Friday, what's Spanish for know when to quit?" Angle is in a given mood tonight though, so Essa can find one of his Spanish homies and he can take Angle on in a tag team match. Kurt's a people person, he'll have no issues at all finding himself a partner for tonight, but Edge and Christian can't help Angle tonight because they're facing Undertaker and Kane in just a moment. The winner of that match faces the Dudley Boys at No Way Out. Triple H enters Rikishi's locker room. He reminds the big man that there's a lot on the line tonight, and Hunter knows Rikishi isn't like that idiot Billy Gunn. This is in reference to Billy not heeding the game's advice on SmackDown and paying for it by getting whacked from behind. No, Rikishi's a smart man, and so Hunter wants to ask him a favour. If Rikishi loses tonight, then Hunter gets to choose the match stipulation for No Way Out. So maybe Big Key should help a brother out and lay down in the middle of the ring. It'll be quick, it'll be easy, and everyone's a winner. Except Rikishi. The Big Goose says no, he doesn't lay down for anyone. He understands where Triple H is coming from, but he can't lay down in the middle of the ring. So Hunter says okay, no worries, and he goes to leave. He then picks up a briefcase to cave Rikishi's big stupid skull in, but he has second thoughts when Haku walks in. Yeah, I'd have second thoughts too, mate. Put that briefcase down and pretend like nothing happened. Right, on Nitro, Flair, Steiner, Bagwell, Luger, Animal and Jarrett come down to the ring. 6 of the Magnificent 7, or 8, maybe 9 if we include Lance Storm, 10 if we include Medeja, I don't know. And before the boys can give Miller a beating, Kevin Nash appears on the Turner Vision. He tells Flair to back off, and it's probably best they don't do anything to Miller because tonight Kevin Nash is running the show. Rick isn't sure how that's possible, seeing as he's currently surrounded with 6 of the Magnificent 15 or whatever it is, but Kev thinks Flair's forgetting about something. Nash has a little bargaining chip, and that bargaining chip is the legendary, incomparable David Flair. Young David's got a black eye, he's got his mouth taped shut because he kept talking shit. So Nash is going to make a few demands if Rick wants his son to see the light of day once again. I'm surprised Rick didn't say, do whatever you want with him, he's a fucking knobhead, but nah, Rick is showing a little concern here. First up, Nash wants Miller vs Lance Storm one more time at SuperBrawl for the WCW Commissionership. A match that's already booked, but needs booked again. The WCW, ladies and gents. Rick says okay, but he begs Nash to let young David go. David's got a lot more women he needs to feel up, and he doesn't deserve such treatment, but Nash has more demands. Dustin Rhodes needs to get brought back to the arena and he needs to get booked against Rick Steiner, and if Dustin wins, Rhodes gets reinstated as a full-time employee and Nash gets a title shot against Scott Steiner tonight on Nitro. 2 problems here. 1, the cat already reinstated Dustin before losing against Storm. And 2, we're going to see Nash vs Steiner this week at SuperBrawl. Why in the name of Jesus tap dancing Christ are we booking another match for tonight that was scheduled for the pay-per-view this week? Rick pleads with Kev to leave David alone. Nash says he's had enough, and tonight it's Kevin Nash calling the shots. If he has to hurt David in order to hurt Rick, he will do it. It's time for Big Kev to make things right, and if not, young David's going straight to hell. Flair goes backstage where Mike Sanders informs him that Scott Steiner hasn't arrived in Nitro yet. Rick, however, wants Mike to find Dustin Rhodes right away because his son's ass is on the line and Dustin needs to perform in the ring tonight on Nitro. Mike finds Dustin after a commercial break and Mike gives Dustin the good news. He's got his job back. But Dustin says he's not in the mood to help out Ric Flair. If Dustin doesn't compete, then one of Nash's demands won't get met, and therefore David Flair's going to be in a lot more trouble than he's already in. I mean, yeah, it's silly seeing as Nash was actually doing Dustin a favour, but Dustin's going to make Rick sweat it out a little while his son's in grave danger. On Raw, Team Extreme took on the trio of Perry Saturn, Chris Benoit and Terry Runnels. One of these things is not like the other. Once again, Dean Malenko came out to watch Lita perform because he thinks she's a really good wrestler. Good stuff in the ring as expected, though I must say, it seems like Perry Saturn's maybe lost a step or two. It's like he's no longer the wrestler we watched compete in WCW. Terry Runnels tried to go after Matt. This led to Lita tagging in and she immediately went after Saturn when Perry tried to help his bird. The match ended with a Lita twisted fate to Terry, followed by a moonsault. Things got a bit more interesting when Saturn attacked Lita after the bell though. Dino Machino ran in and he shoved his Radical teammate, so there appears to be some dissension within the Radicals. Stinko Malenko's being a gentleman and he's helping Lita do her no, scratch that. What a bastard. The Radicals are united while Lita almost got her head taken off her shoulders. It's fucking wild. Edge and Christian take on the Brothers of Destruction next on Raw. On Nitro, we've got Yang versus Lash LaRue. This Nitro match was a qualifier for an upcoming 6-man cruiserweight match at SuperBrawl. The winner of the SuperBrawl match will get a title shot at Chavo Guerrero at WCW Greed. And poor Yang's having a bad week, ladies and gents. He has a slight timing issue when using the ropes for some extra elevation, though this could have been Lash LaRue's fault too. And he botched his corner chest flip, which he usually lands perfectly. I said he's having a bad week because he also makes quite a few mistakes during the upcoming SuperBrawl match, so not sure if he was maybe under the weather or something, I don't know. He did manage a nice Isai moonsault and his Tornado DDT also looked pretty slick, but the move of the match had to be Lash LaRue's running power slam. Davey Boy Smith lives on. Yang performs a double level moonsault and the landing was pretty rough, and his corkscrew moonsault to win the match also wasn't exactly on point. You can see Lash moving over to just make up the distance a little, but again the landing was rough. Still, it is enough for Yang to pick up the win, though it is quite surprising seeing him having a bad match. Usually Yang's work is pretty spot on, so not sure what's going on. The Dudley boys join the commentary team for our tag team match. ENC want another shot at the tag team belts at No Way Out, while the Dudleys are eager to beat these two up. Kane and Taker, meanwhile, not only want a shot at the tag team belts, but they also want some revenge for Edge and Christian's interference last week. And so we've got a chaotic start to this one as the crowd goes nuts. Edge falls victim to a double flapjack, Christian gets sent out of the ring and the Undertaker follows him. The Dudleys get a bit frisky when confronted by the dead man, so the referee gets distracted while Christian grabs a chair. The CLB gets back in the ring and Kane takes a chair shot right to the head. Edge then covers the big red machine, but Kane kicks out at 2 and the match continues on. Edge and Christian do well to get the big man in their corner, and while Kane tries to fight out, his efforts are all for nothing. He tries his flying clothesline, but he ends up getting crotched on the top turnbuckle instead, and this gives ENC a chance to pull off a double superplex. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out too well, and Kane's finally able to pull off that clothesline. Undertaker gets tagged in and Christian gets scooped up for a big old power slam. Edge comes in only to get hit with a jumping clothesline, and even though Edge is able to stop his partner from taking a last ride, he doesn't stop Christian taking a choke slam. Kane heads outside to take care of Edge, but our boy gets thrown straight into the Dudley boys. Bubba Ray and Devon launch an attack, Undertaker and Christian join in, and the referee calls for the bell as all 6 men brawl outside the ring. A lot of officials have to come down to break things up. We even have Sergeant Slaughter here, so you know it's pretty serious. Eventually the men are separated, but we have no idea who the number 1 contenders are for the tag belts at No Way Out. So Michael Cole gets some answers from Mr. McMahon. Vince was just on the phone talking about how he's going to give his wife Linda a special Valentine's gift, and he's also going to record this little exchange for the entire world to see. The footage will air on SmackDown this week, so there you go. We'll see a sedated Linda McMahon this Thursday night, ladies and gents. That'll put some butts in seats. Oh yeah, the tag match at No Way Out. Mr. McMahon's all about fairness, so it's now going to be a triple threat tag. The Dudleys defending against the Brothers of Destruction and Edge and Christian. Backstage Shenanigans are afoot on Monday Nitro while the WWF presents Triple H vs Billy Gunn. So Rick wants a progress report from Mike Sanders and it's bad news. Dustin says he's not going to do Ric Flair any favours, so Nate tells Mike to go back to Dustin and get him booked against Rick Steiner. No ifs, no buts, no bollocks. Sanders goes back, he literally gets on his knees and he begs Dustin to compete tonight. He says Rick will give him anything he wants as long as he gets in the ring. So Dustin says, and I quote, "Okay, I'll have a blowjob." No, he says if he beats Rick Steiner tonight, Flair must give him a shot at the DFG's US title this Sunday at SuperBrawl. So hold the fuck up 1 second, mister. You mean to tell me if Dustin wins, we're going to see 3 matches tonight that are already booked for SuperBrawl? Cat vs Storm, Scotty Steiner vs Nash, and Rhodes vs Rick Steiner? I think WCW don't want people to buy the pay-per-view, and I'm being totally serious. It feels like self-sabotage. Maybe it's due to the new owners coming in and the creative team are being salty. I really don't know, but you couldn't make this up. You really couldn't. Mean Gene thinks jealousy broke up the Natural Born Thrillers, but Stasiak thinks it wasn't jealousy, it was stupidity. Yeah, he's admitting the faction he was part of was actually really stupid. Stasiak faces Chuck Palumbo later tonight on Nitro, and Palumbo, along with his buddy Sean O'Hare, are stupid because they thought they were the leaders of the Natural Born Thrillers. Sean says he carried Palumbo to the Tag Team Championships, and sorry, I don't agree. Not for a single minute. Ernest the Cat Miller's feeling a bit defeated right about now, so here comes Positively Paige to cheer him up. DDP says it's okay, Nash booked Miller in a match against Lance Storm at SuperBrawl, even though the match was booked already. Paige also quotes Muhammad Ali when he says, "You're only a loser when you quit the fight." Deep, deep words from Diamond Dallas Page. And as for Double J Jeff Jarrett, well, he and Kenyon are going to Bangtown. Sounds erotic. Road Warrior Animal's going to beat the shit out of Mike Sanders for agreeing to the demands of one Dustin Rhodes, but Rick gets the boys to chill out a bit when he realises the Rhodes vs Rick Steiner match is definitely going to happen. Flair also wants Animal to act as an insurance policy tonight. He wants Animal to make sure Dustin does not win. So we'll find out what happens in our next Nitro match. Billy Gunn did not give us a China update on Raw. Instead, he said he's going to get some payback for what Triple H did to him on SmackDown. And things were going quite well for the one after a big old press slam followed by a dropkick. The game replied with a facebreaker knee smash as Stephanie looks on a little worried. But don't worry Steph, Hunter isn't jobbing out to Billy Gunn tonight on Raw. Not a chance of it. Suplex and knee drop from the game. Billy replies with a spinebuster and both men take a rest. When they get up, it's Billy Gunn with a few hard strikes followed by a jackhammer. And Billy says the end's near when he signals for the one and only. He goes for the move, it gets countered. He goes for a famouser, it gets countered too. Hunter puts his old DX comrade out of his misery with a pedigree. The match was honestly kinda pointless and it had a foregone conclusion, but yeah, the audience seemed to enjoy it quite a bit. Kurt Angle tells Michael Cole he could pick anyone to be his partner tonight, seeing as he's just facing Essa Rios and one of his Spanish homies. He could even pick this lady right here and Kurt would still win the match. Raven comes along, he says he'll be Kurt's partner, seeing as both guys are champions and this little lady probably needs to get back to the retirement home. So Kurt agrees and Angle has his partner. The Big Show approaches Essa Rios and shows Happy that Angle fell for Essa's little challenge. Clearly the big man put Rios up to this, so I guess we also know who Kurt and Raven are going to face later on. Dustin Rhodes takes on Rick Steiner next on Nitro, while X-Pac returns the in-ring action when he faces Scotty to Hotty. So, Rhodes, in some very flashy ring gear, goes to work on the dog-faced gremlin. The artist formerly known as Goldust's making it look easy as he knocks Rick out of the ring, so Rick kicks him square in the dick and Dustin's not so tough now, is he? Rick performs a Steiner line, he claws at Dustin's face for a bit, the two then head outside for a brief scuffle, and back in the ring it's a belly-to-belly suplex from the US champion. Dustin gets pummeled in the corner and Rick thinks he's got this one in the bag. He didn't think Rhodes would come back with a sleeper hold, so he performs a jawbreaker and our match continues on. Honestly, I don't even feel like watching this match, seeing as it's highly probable we'll be watching it again at SuperBrawl. But then Rick performs a chinlock and I kick myself for being such an idiot. This match is awesome. Potentially match of the night actually. Dustin thinks he's brilliant as he fights his way out of the most devastating move in pro wrestling history, but a stiff Steiner line sends Dustin to another planet, my. Rick acts like his big brother when Dustin kicks out at 2, meaning he takes it out on the poor referee, and if this isn't bad enough, Billy takes a bump when Dustin leapfrogs over his opponent. A wrestler will always cover his opponent when the referee's knocked out, so here's Dustin covering Rick after delivering a bulldog. Road Warrior Animal shows up, he gets knocked off the apron but this allows Rick to perform a belly to belly. The franchise Shane Douglas then appears and he hits Rick with his cast. Yeah, Shane was feuding with Rick before Rick turned heel, so I guess that means Shane's now a babyface. Yeah, that's going to work out really well, I'm sure. A DDT from Dustin and a pinfall victory means Nash vs Steiner will happen tonight. It also means Dustin vs Rick Steiner happens again this week at SuperBrawl. The match was actually better than I thought it was going to be, but I don't really want to see it again on pay-per-view, I'm sorry. Animal and Rick attack Shane after the bell and Dustin's too late getting back to the ring. Shane gets his other arm broke by the bad guys, even though I'm not sure how he broke the other one, but nonetheless, a bad day at the office for the franchise. Right, so on Raw, I was actually quite excited to see X-Pac return to in-ring action, and I still think to this day Waltman's one of the most underappreciated performers in wrestling history. All anyone bangs on about is X-Pac heat this and X-Pac heat that, but I do wish people would pay closer attention to his ring work. He really was very good from bell to bell. I was kinda disappointed then when this match ended early thanks to Scotty jumping off the top rope and seemingly injuring himself in the process. But don't worry boys, it's a work. The referee calls the match off, but Pac grabs a microphone to say he ain't done yet. X-Pac sat at home for way too long, he came here to kick somebody's ass, so he picks a fight with Grandmaster Sexay and we get a second match. So Brian and X-Pac get in the ring and Christopher performs a power slam and a bulldog. It looks like X-Pac may have bitten off more than he can chew as he gets wheeled in the corner by the Grandmaster, but he easily shakes it off and he puts Christopher away with an X Factor. I know I said I was excited and it was great to see X-Pac back, but at the same time, he just totally decimated a tag team that was once featured in Raw main events. Jericho runs down. Y2J wants some revenge for what Pac did earlier on, but Waltman gets some help from Justin Credible. This isn't the first time we've seen Justin in Reliving the War. He wrestled in WWF previously as Aldo Montoya with his underwear on his face, but he was taken a bit more seriously in ECW after leaving WWF, and now he's back to team up with Waltman. I can only imagine the amount of drugs these two are going to do while on the road. Big Papa Pump just learned about what Nash did earlier on and he's angry. He says he's going to do this his way and he's going to take Nash out ASAP. So he goes looking for Big Sexy. He finds someone who's even bigger and even sexier than Kevin Nash and he beats the poor guy up before continuing his search. Next on Nitro, we've got another cruiserweight match, Elix Skipper versus Billy Kidman. On Raw, Al Snow's cosplaying as Mankind to cut a promo. So this Nitro match is another qualifier for that 6-man cruiserweight bout I mentioned earlier on. Primetime said he was going to show us something we've never seen before in this match, so I'm watching on intently here to see what he was talking about. He attacks before the bell, but we have seen this before. He pulled off a German suplex, which again we have seen before. A choke at the ropes? Nah, that can't be it. Come on Elix, dazzle me with this special surprise you've got in your back pocket. I hope you weren't talking a big old load of shit, mister. What else does Skipper do? A corkscrew plancha? Seen it before, mate. A dragon suplex? Yeah, that can't be it. Now here's an interesting take on an inverted snapmare with Elix using his back during the flip, but is this what he was talking about? Well, it must have been, because the match ends with a Billy Kidman Kid Crusher, so yep, there you go, Skipper lied. Maybe he was seeing into the future and he was talking about that insane Hurricane Rana he had pulled off in TNA, I don't know. But Billy Kidman qualifies for that 6-man cruiserweight match, and quick spoiler, he actually doesn't compete in that bout, rendering this Nitro match we just watched totally pointless. Okay, Al Snow makes his way down to the ring dressed up as Mankind, and he once again wants to plead his case to Mr. McMahon to bring Mick Foley back to the WWF. Al says McMahon hasn't been acting in the interest of fairness recently, he's been acting in the interest of screwing. Not screwing Al Snow, not screwing Trish Stratus.
Yeah, who's he think he's fooling?
No, Vince McMahon is screwing Mick Foley. Foley may be a fat, goofy, smelly man, but he's Al Snow's best friend. The people want Foley to come back. Foley was unfairly fired by Vince McMahon. But tonight, Mick Foley lives through Al Snow, and tonight Al's going to sit in the ring as a protest. Al wants McMahon to come to the ring right now and talk to him, and it doesn't take long for Vince to show up. McMahon gets in the ring. He says he isn't screwing anybody. McMahon is all about fairness, and just for the record, Mr. McMahon and Trish are just friends. Yeah, I don't believe you. Vince tells Snow to get out of the ring or McMahon's going to remove Al himself. Snow refuses, so McMahon takes his jacket off. Before things get physical, William Regal appears and he says McMahon doesn't need to lower himself to violence. Vince is a classy man, Regal can mediate this little disagreement, and William begins his mediation by telling Al Snow not to besmirch the good name of Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Regal says Trish is actually his girlfriend, his little bit of crumpet. And while Regal continues to talk nonsense, Vince delivers a low blow to Al, which really isn't in the interest of fairness, is it? Al takes a beating before Regal and McMahon leave the ring. It looks like Mick Foley isn't coming back to the WWF after all, but it's still interesting that his name's getting brought up. Steve Austin confronts McMahon backstage. He threatens to tie his grapefruits to the back of a monster truck in order to yank those little bastards right off McMahon's carcass. Put that on pay-per-view and I'm sure people will buy it. Take notes, WCW. A video of the Kid performing a pole dance at WWF New York airs on Raw, and the Right to Censor wonder how long their leader's going to put up with this. Steven says he's going to handle this little problem very soon, and it'll be for the Kid's own good. Raven and Kurt Angle now know they're facing the Big Show and Essa Rios. Raven wants to back out, but Kurt says it's okay. All Raven has to do is deal with the Big Show while Kurt focuses on Mr. Rios. Easy peasy. That match is up next on Raw while Nitro presents Sean Stasiak vs Chuck Palumbo. So it's former tag team champions squaring off on TNT, and it's all Chuck Palumbo at the opening bell. The fans are behind Palumbo tonight, but not by a whole lot, to be honest. As a matter of fact, when the action resumes, the fans don't really seem to care who wins and who loses. Stasiak comes back with a gut-wrench slam. It looked like it was a bit of a struggle, though he lands his back elbow perfectly. Palumbo remains on the back foot after a bulldog and a snap suplex, though he does manage to make a comeback following a Northern Lights. A big Alabama slam isn't enough to win it for Chucky P, so he heads upstairs to deliver a flying shoulder tackle. Again, it's not enough, so it's time to warm up the band for the jungle kick. Do you warm up the band for a jungle kick? I don't know, but the move doesn't connect anyway, and the guys totally botched the finish, which was supposed to see Stasiak grab Palumbo's tights during a roll-up. Instead, the guys get all tangled up beside the ropes like a messy plate of spaghetti, and the referee says, "Fuck this, lads, you may do it again." So that's exactly what they do, and Shawn Stasiak wins via pinfall. An extraordinarily poor finish to what was a decent enough match from bell to bell. Shocking stuff. Stasiak has the cheek to say he carried Palumbo to the tag team belts, and he also carried him in this match tonight. Do remember, Stasiak has more experience than Chuck Palumbo, so if anyone should take the blame for this mess, it's actually Shawn. So, Angle's master plan gets underway as he does indeed focus on Essa Rios at the opening bell. The Big Show's very eager to tag in, but both Kurt and Raven do their best to keep the Giant away from the action. Unfortunately, Raven ends up a bit too close to the opposition's corner and Big Show's able to headbutt him. This allows the big man to tag in, and look at this. Clearly, Teddy Long sees the tag. He even says the word tag after Rios slaps the Big Show's hand. But when Show goes after Angle, Teddy tries to say the Giant didn't tag in, and therefore he isn't legal. This allows Angle to get in the ring and perform an Olympic slam on Rios, and Raven wins via pinfall. You'd expect this kind of stuff over on TNT, and I'm sure Teddy got his balls chewed off backstage. Big Show wants to get his hands on Kurt, though Raven helps the WWF champion by hitting Show with a low blow. The Ninja Lady then shows up to bring Raven and Angle a few toys to play with, but the boys struggle to put Big Show down. So Angle ends up sacrificing Raven so he can get out of harm's way. Raven takes a showstopper before Raw moves on to its main event, and again, I'm confused if Big Show's meant to be a babyface or a heel. Before the Nitro main event, Diamond Dallas Page cut a promo. He said Jarrett's going to feel the bang at SuperBrawl, though Page also has Chris Kanyon on his mind. Kanyon tried to impersonate Page, he stole his gimmick, his entrance, he even stole his finisher, so Page says he'd be happy to face Kanyon anywhere and anytime. Keep this in mind for SuperBrawl this week. Jarrett comes out, he says Page's butt will be positively his at SuperBrawl, and it'll be Dallas who feels the bang this Sunday. Again, it's very erotic. Page calls Jeff a J-Bro. These two can get in the ring right now in Bollocks, Mississippi if Jarrett isn't afraid. But here comes Chris Kanyon, and unfortunately his attack isn't very successful. Kanyon takes the discus lariat, he takes the diamond cutter, but then Jeff gets in the ring to hit Page with his guitar, and it all ends with Dallas taking the stroke. Not a great night for DDP, but if you're a fan of Dallas, you will want to check out SuperBrawl Revenge later this week. He gets quite a lot of airtime. Scotty Steiner's located Kevin Nash's hostage room, but both Kev and David have left, and that's because they're heading to the ring for the Nitro main event while Raw presents Rikishi versus The Rock. So Nash puts David in the ring and Ric Flair comes out. Rick says he's done everything Kev asked him, so it's time to let David go and let him go back to being the little psychopath we all know and love. Nash isn't going to play ball, instead he's going to jackknife young David, and take a listen to Rick's reaction. The security goons get David out of the ring, Scott Steiner makes his entrance, and yes, it's the SuperBrawl main event happening 6 days prior on Nitro. Kev makes easy work of the world champion early on. We go to the corner where Kevin Nash really does shine when it comes to offense, but just when we go outside, we see Rick putting David in his limousine. He then tells the Magnificent 46 that it's time to go out there and give Big Sexy 2 broken legs, but it looks like they don't need to bother. Scott's turned it around on the outside, and back in the ring, Nash falls victim to a belly-to-belly. Nash takes a Steiner line, he gets put in a sleeper hold. The cavalry then arrive, but the babyfaces also show up. So we have Dustin Rhodes, Ernest Miller and Chronic making sure Jarrett and company don't make it to the ring. Nash looks to end it with a sidewalk slam, a big boot and a jackknife. Before he can pull off his finisher though, Ric Flair marches down to the ring, and as he chops Kevin, he also takes a punch to the head. The referee calls for the bell. This one's all over. So Rick takes a jackknife, and our show ends with Scotty destroying Kev's knee with his big lead pipe. Tony Schiavone says Nash has very vulnerable knees, which is probably an understatement, but that's how it ends, ladies and gents. We don't know if Kev's now going to compete at Super Brawl. My heart bleeds. Loads of entrances over on Raw eat up a ton of time, but Triple H gets smacked off the apron before the match got underway. Rock brings it to Rikishi with a jumping clothesline, a spit punch and a DDT. Rikishi, meanwhile, delivers a corner hip attack and a standing sidekick before Rock tumbles out of the ring. Triple H tries to give Rock some words of encouragement. I'm sure Rock didn't want to hear it. The Great One and the Big Oos fight around the ringside area for a bit. Rikishi gets the upper hand, which doesn't please Triple H at all. So this little friendship breaks down when Hunter goes to hit Quiche, but the big man fights back. It's because of Triple H that Rock gets sent over the barrier, and this allows Rikishi to maintain control back inside the ring. And as Rock continues to get decimated, Triple H and Stephanie try to rally the fans. They chant Rocky's name, and it seems to work as the Great One explodes out of the corner with a hard clothesline, not once but twice. Spinebuster from The Rock, Samoan drop from Rikishi. Stephanie gets on the apron to distract the referee, and Triple H puts Rock on top of Rikishi. The ref's still distracted, so Austin puts Rikishi on top of Rocky. The Rock kicks out, but on the outside, Austin's now in Hunter's face. The two argue, and Stephanie ends up slapping Stone Cold. The Rattlesnake wants to go after Stephanie, but Hunter steps in front of her, all while Rock delivers a rock bottom back inside the ring. Rock wins via pinfall. Triple H is very happy with the outcome, and Hunter's in such a good mood that he gets in the ring to raise the winner's hand. This doesn't go down well with Rocky. The Great One attacks Hunter, but the game gets a little backup from Rikishi. I guess they're cool with each other again. Rock takes a beating before Stone Cold gets in the ring, and Austin helps Rocky out a little by giving Rikishi a Stone Cold Stunner. We don't learn what stipulation Triple H is going to select, seeing as Raw fades out as he and Austin stare each other down, so we'll see if it gets revealed this week on SmackDown. Some botchy matches on Nitro this week, and some really insane match bookings when you consider the matches we're going to see this week at Super Brawl. Raw wins Reliving the War once again. For a go-home show, Nitro was absolutely terrible. It seems like they threw all logic and sensibilities out the window, and instead of promoting their upcoming pay-per-view, they just gave the matches away for free. It's one thing to hotshot big matches on TV, it's another to expect people to pay for matches they've already seen days before. Matches, plural, not a single match, not just the main event, but a selection of matches. Raw's on 165 points, Nitro's on 82, and we've got 25 ties. In the TV ratings, Raw got a 4.8, Nitro got a 2.1. SuperBrawl Revenge is up next, so come on over to see Scott Steiner vs Kevin Nash again, Rick Steiner vs Dustin Rhodes again, and Ernest Miller vs Lance Storm again. Now, to be fair, it's not a totally bad pay-per-view, and there's a couple of matches that might surprise you, so do come over and check it out. We only have 2 WCW pay-per-views left, ladies and gents, so let's make the most of them before we wave goodbye. Thank you very much for watching. If I've done enough to earn it, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I hope your 2026 is better than last year, and yeah, I'll see you this Sunday for Super Brawl. Please take care.